Hi guys, welcome back to the blog on blogs. Today we have a very special guest with us, Mr. Joe David, the founder of Nephos Group. Hi.
Hi Nikki, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Very well, thank you.
Yeah, you just got back from
UK.
How was
Yeah.
it?
Yeah, it was good. It was nice. Nice to go and then come back there. The UK is it's a difficult place at the moment. So it was nice to see family and friends and our office there as well. So
Okay, I don't think we've ever talked about this, but so Nephos Group started in the UK.
Yeah. So I started the business 12 years ago, something like that. Yeah, in the UK. At that point, obviously nothing to do with crypto. Just a kind of accounting firm in the UK dealing with tech clients, entrepreneurs, startups. So our main office, head office is in the UK still.
Okay, and I really want to know about that journey. So what made you start Nephos Group? And then tell me about that shift from the UK to Dubai.
Yeah, so what made me start was, that entrepreneurial kind of mindset, right? I wanted to run a business. I'm not going to pretend that I always wanted to run. You hear these entrepreneurs and they say, when I was, 6 months old, I knew I was going to be an entrepreneur. Like, it's just not true. When I was growing up and when I was going through kind of schooling, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I fell into accounting. And eventually I kind of just got that buzz for entrepreneurship and that buzz to kind of run a business. And that was my skill set was accounting, and so that's the business that I started. So that was the kind of the main reason. And I've got a very sad and strong work ethic, which means I love what I do. I love working. I love doing business. I love growing a business, scaling, achieving, seeing clients do the same. And I just didn't want to do that on other people's time. I was like, if I'm going to work like this, I may as well do it for my own business, for my own time. Although now I say that the amount of pain you go through running a business, it would have been easier to just do it on someone else's time. But that was the main reason. And then once we'd started, the reason, I guess, if we fast forward quite a lot to why we came to Dubai, we got into crypto in 2018, and that was pure luck. There was no reason. We weren't looking for crypto. It just happened that a client came to us and said, look, I need your help. We've got this business. And in 2018, no lawyer, no accountant, nobody was willing to even have the conversation. So the fact that we were willing to have the conversation, the guy was like, you guys are the ones for me. So that's kind of how that started. And then it just grew significantly from there, because again, when you're an accountant or an advisor in the crypto space in 2018, 2019, you stand out like a sore thumb, right? Because nobody else is doing it. So we very quickly then picked up referrals. And then 2 years ago when I decided to come here was, I wanted a challenge. I wanted something different. I wanted to try and grow a business in a new country, a new culture, all of that sort of stuff. And where better place to come than probably the crypto hub of the world, right? So that's what brought me here.
Okay, interesting. So how have you shifted, like as a person, as an entrepreneur, as a leader? How has being involved in crypto shifted you and your mindset?
I think it's made me a lot more open-minded. When you start to learn, you think you know a lot about the world, about finance. I say economics. I was never economic kind of master, but you think you know a lot about all these different things, and then you open your eyes to crypto, and it definitely shows you how the current world really doesn't operate in the most efficient, fair, transparent way. And so it really does open your eyes, I think. But also from a learning perspective, like I say, I thought I knew bits and pieces around economy and monetary policy, and not loads, but enough. And then you get into crypto, and I was amazed at how much it taught me about economics and money. And you think this thing that's kind of been brought out to challenge that world actually is the thing that opened my eyes to what that world really is. So it's made me a completely different person, I think, if that makes sense, right? Because it just shows you a completely different world.
I think anyone who's gotten into crypto can relate to that. Even for me, I think for me the biggest thing was, so I studied finance in uni, and then so when I got into crypto, it kind of started showing me all the bugs and loopholes in the traditional system.
Yeah.
And I'm like, whoa, wait, what?
Yeah, and it's one small thing, right? Like auditability and kind of the ability to trace transactions and things. You know, I've been told many times, I'm sure you have, that crypto can't be traced and it's anonymous, and you know, and actually it's the most traceable asset that's ever existed, right? So I think that's from a I'm not an auditor myself, but from an audit, accounting, kind of, you know, tax perspective, having something that it's impossible, you can't ignore it. It's an immutable blockchain that can't be changed.
Yeah.
You know, from an auditor's perspective, from a tax perspective, like, it's a dream.
Thank God.
Yeah. But still, a lot of those professions still look at it as this big bad thing that they can't, and it's just purely an understanding thing.
Yeah. But what do you think about all the regulation now and all the auditing that is taking place? Because so I hear a lot that the initial purpose of crypto was to not
deregulate. Yeah. I think it's a difficult one because, you know, again, 3-4 years ago, I was very much on that kind of, you know, kind of school of thought of like, you know, crypto was here to not avoid regulation, but to kind of take away the need in a lot of sense. And it was supposed to be free, and it was supposed to be, you know, kind of flexible and things like that. The issue you have is you can't have it both ways when you're in crypto. You can't have mass adoption and no regulation, because you can't expect retail normal investors or retail normal people to adopt something they don't understand, they're a bit scared of, they can't trust in their own mind. So I think if you want mass adoption, you have to have some sort of regulation. The key for me is having enough regulation to make sure that, you know, the retail investors can do what they need to do and feel safe, but not too much that it stifles innovation, right? Yeah. So you've really got to get that balance. Now, I'm not saying I know what that balance is, because that's a super hard thing. If you're a regulator, it's a super hard thing. The one thing I would say, you know, and I'm not just going to sing Dubai's praises this whole time, but, you know, you take someone like Vara, they haven't just plugged, you know, crypto regulation into their traditional system like the UK have tried to do with the FCA, and, you know, previously the US have done with the SEC. They've actually come along and said, no, this needs somebody to come and look at this completely independently of all those other things. Yeah, it needs to regulate this as it is, not as if it's something else, right? Yeah. So I think that is genuinely a world leading, you know, kind of decision, if you like, that the UAE made to say we are going, or Dubai specifically made to say we are going to regulate this properly. Yeah. And we're going to put people in it that understand it. We're going to put people in it that their job, their focus, their, you know, kind of entire remit is that. It's not 95% this and 5% that, you know. Yeah. For me, that seems to be the most logical way to regulate this. And other jurisdictions, the UK, obviously I know very well specifically, they're not doing that. They're asking people in the FCA that have been there for 20, 30, 40, 50 years regulating traditional financial systems to then try and understand this new way. It's never going to work, right? Yeah. You know, it's always going to be a challenge. So yeah, I think that's where my view stands on it. I believe that regulation is important in certain areas, and especially things like stable coins. You know, you can't be putting yourself out as a stable, in inverted commas, coin and have no regulation, no kind of, you know, kind of view on what that actually looks like to a retail investor. Because a retail investor will read the word stable coin and think it's stable. Yeah. Why wouldn't you? So I think there's areas that absolutely have to be. But then there will be certain areas, you know, around kind of decentralized exchanges maybe and decentralized wallets and things like that, where you should be allowed to control your own destiny. Yeah.
No, I agree. That's I think that is probably the mass perspective right now on regulation. But we also get a lot of people that are just really upset about it. Anyways, I've been dying to pick your brain about this. Yeah. And I think this is the perfect opportunity. But tell me more about tax in crypto. Yeah. Because for me, I always get super confused. And especially in Dubai, it's like, I know we have the VAT and we have the corporate tax, but then does that apply to crypto if your company operates in crypto? Yeah.
So it's a good, and we'll try and break this down as like simply and user friendly as possible, right? So ultimately, the way to think about it in a lot of senses is what is your business doing, okay? So if your business is a traditional business, so let's say an accounting firm like us, and you receive crypto as a payment method, then there is no difference to that than receiving it in fiat. You're taxed as normal. The invoice that you raise is part of your business income as normal. Everything is exactly the same. The difference is, instead of receiving dirhams for that payment, you're receiving a stable coin, right? For example. So in that context, nothing changes. Where it gets a little bit more complicated is when you look at, say, I don't know, an exchange or something like that, where it's completely separate to what the real, so it's not a real world business accepting crypto, it's a complete crypto native project or a protocol, like Ethereum or something like that, right? So there, where it gets a lot more difficult. Now, the FTA have tried, in fairness to them, to clarify some of these situations, and the main general consensus is that if the service, so for example an exchange is that, there would be no VAT on that, and that's the same in the traditional world as well. So there's no VAT on the, so if I exchange Bitcoin with you for Ethereum or for a stable coin, there's no VAT on that transaction.
Right.
But if I sell you a service, that would be taxable and vatable under normal circumstances, and therefore it becomes vatable in this circumstance. So that's a real simplistic, obviously there's nuances and things that we need to go into specifics when we talk to people, but that's the kind of general rule. In terms of corporate tax, which obviously came out a few years ago in the UAE for the first time, that at the moment there is no direct clarification on whether corporate tax does or does not apply.
Okay.
And the general consensus is if nothing says that it doesn't, it probably does, if that makes sense. Yeah. So at the moment, if you trade, so if I buy Bitcoin at $10,000 and it goes to 20 and I sell that then, and I've made a gain, and it's within a company, that would fall as taxable profit, and you would pay corporate tax on that gain of that trade.
But then for personal,
no. So that's a big question then, right? Is do you then, why set up, for example, a proprietary trading company, which is trading your own capital? Why set up a company for that and not trade in your own name? So if you trade through a company, it's taxable. If you trade through your own name, it's not. The flip to that is the FTA came out with a rule in general that if you're an individual and you're generating income and it's worth more than 1 million dirhams a year, then there's a chance that you actually as an individual need to register for corporate tax.
Oh.
Yeah. So there's still, so if you're a freelancer, freelance photographer, for example, with no company, and you do 1.5 million in revenue, you should register as a natural person for corporate tax.
Oh.
So there is then a question mark of if you trade in your own name, but my argument would be that trading is not
a business.
Yeah, so it's a bit of a grey area.
Yeah.
The other side to that is asset protection, especially, somewhere like here where the rules are obviously probably very different to a lot of people's, homeland or what have you. So a lot of people like to house their wealth or their assets in an entity of some kind, whether that's a free zone entity, a foundation, those sorts of things, because it allows them a bit more flexibility on asset protection. So if they need to move the money to other family members or, things like that, whereas in your own name, that can be a little bit more difficult. Or if something obviously not nice happens to you, it can be more tricky if there's no, company there to manage it. And of course, hopefully not, but if there's a legal situation and you've got everything in your own name, then they can come after you. If it's through a company, then they can't. So
limited liability.
Yeah, exactly. So there are like pros and cons, if you like, to both. But it's definitely one that needs more clarification. I don't know this for a fact, so don't quote me specifically on this, but I wouldn't be surprised if the FTA came out and did some kind of exemption or, kind of if you trade up to this amount or something, because they're so pro crypto here.
Yeah.
And they want to be at the forefront.
Yeah.
It would kind of make sense for them to come out and go, do you know what? If you're building a crypto business here, we're going to give you these tax incentives. And I don't know that, but that's my...
Yeah, I think it's time I think we're going to hear from them very soon because it's been a while. Yeah. I don't think I've seen anything from the FTA about crypto.
No, the only clarification was on VAT. So they did clarify VAT, and they have clarified mining, for example, again with VAT. So, they've said, for example, that if I mine with my own mining equipment or however it's done, that is not vatable. if you pay me
to mine
for you,
service.
that's a service, and therefore that's valuable. So they have come out with a few of these again, staking's the same. So if I stake my own capital, that's fine. If I stake for you, so they have come out with some of these clarifications on certain areas, but I think a kind of bigger piece solely around the whole of crypto in general, I think is definitely something they would be looking at.
Yeah, absolutely. I have another question. So I heard, and this sounded crazy to me. So I want to know if this is a myth or if it's true. Okay, I heard that in the States they recently passed a law where if you're holding your crypto, even if you haven't sold it, you still have to pay tax on your capital gain.
So they didn't release that law.
Okay.
As far I'm not a US expert, but as far as I'm aware, they didn't release that law. That was during the campaign of Trump and Kamala Harris. One of the policies of the Democrats was to tax unrealized
gain,
which is, I mean, how you police that is just insane, right?
Yeah.
To say to somebody, you've made a gain on paper, but you now need to pay tax, but you have no money because it's still in this. It makes no sense. So no, as far as I'm concerned, when Trump came out, or Trump won, should I say, that was absolutely not something he was gonna bring forward.
I heard it and I was like, no.
Doesn't make sense.
No. And it's similar to, so I was watching this influencer and she was saying like, she doesn't accept gifts to make videos because if she does, the value of that gift is going to be considered income for her, and then she has to pay tax on it. Because like that's kind of the same thing.
Yeah, but we in the UK, for example, there's a similar sort of thing for employees. So like, if you work for me, if I give you a benefit, so if I give you a car or I don't know, tickets to something, you get taxed on that as an employee because it's a benefit. It's less tax than if I paid you and then you tax on that and then bought the car, for example. But there is still a benefit, and therefore you pay. So it can get quite complicated, and the same would apply in theory with crypto. If we gifted our staff crypto, then in theory there is a taxable element to that.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyways, talking about employees.
Yeah.
I saw on your Instagram, which by the way, so many topics, but I love that you're doing this personal branding, and you're really like out there.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of entrepreneurs and a lot of founders need to get used to this now.
Yeah.
Because I feel like back in the day, it was more of like quiet, especially if you're the founder.
Yeah,
but now it's so important. So I love that you're really on that train. But I saw on your Instagram all the team building exercises and everything you guys were doing at Nephos. So tell me more about being a leader and what your favorite part is about having a team. And then tell me like, what is the biggest challenge in your opinion as well?
The biggest challenge is easy, and that's delegation. Like, I'm a terrible delegator. Like, because and this is nothing to do, because our team are incredible. So like, this is nothing to do with them, but I just think if I don't do it, I don't know if it's done properly.
Yeah.
Right? So being a delegator is really challenging for me. So that's the biggest challenge by far. I had on day one and I still have now, so I end up doing stupid hours because I won't delegate certain stuff that I probably should, because I'm so kind of like, I need to do this, I need to get it done, etc., etc. So that's definitely the biggest challenge, like easily. In terms of like, the team and, what we've got in the business is we've always kind of looked at it as, yes, we're an accounting firm, professional services, all those things where, traditionally turn up in suits and sit behind a desk and like, we've never been that type of firm. Like, we've never been a kind of, we are an accounting firm, therefore we should do it this way. We've always kind of, in the nicest sense, said we are gonna, say whatever to the world, and this is how we're gonna do it, right? That's always how we've decided. So we've always tried to hire with that mindset, and the first thing we do when we hire is like, is that person a fit, right? You can teach someone skills, but you can't teach them personality. But like, you know what I mean? Like, you can't, if they're not gonna fit, they're not gonna fit. Like, if their view is that every day they want to come into the office in a suit, I'm not saying that's wrong, but for our business, that it doesn't fit with the vibe that we've got. So like, for me, being able to grow a business with people that have that vision of what, like, they believe in what we're trying to build, if that makes sense, that has been like the most amazing thing. And we genuinely now have like, the team is so incredible, honestly. Like, you know, and I say this all the time, but like, you know, a leader, a founder, 99 times out of 100, they can't do what they do without the amazing team.
Yeah.
Like, it's as simple as that. Like, I couldn't run the business at the size we are without an incredible team. It's just, you know, it's, that's the way it is. So, you know, whilst I probably sit there sometimes I think I could do that better, or I could do that quicker, you know, in reality, we wouldn't be where we are without those people. So, you know, that's my biggest, like, I love seeing them grow. I love seeing them develop. And one thing I've had to make sure I've done is hire a good operations lead. So a lady called Julie, she's been with me for like 5-6 years now, by my side the whole time. But she is like, she's the HR operations lead, right? Because without her, I'm not the greatest man manager or person manager. So like, she's the kind of rock, if you like, that the team can go to. And then I'm the visionary that comes out with all these crazy ideas, and then she has to calm it down. So it's that kind of, you know, we may not be some, you know, scaling tech firm or crypto firm, like in terms of building a crypto project, but we still think that way. We still try and operate that way. And it needs a visionary and a founder that wants to keep pushing the boundaries, and then it needs some people around him that, or her, that, you know, kind of keep him or her grounded.
We always say this about our founder Farbod. So we say when Farbod walks, it's like a tornado just and we all have to follow him and clean up whatever he's leaving behind.
It was when I went back to the UK and went into the office, Julie said that her concern was that when I come into the office, I would just cause chaos. You know, and it's exactly what you just said. It's like, she wasn't like, oh, the boss is coming in, everyone better be, you know, because he'll be like that. It's like, no, if he comes in, he's going to cause chaos. And this neat and tidy thing that I created, he's going to, like Tasmanian devil, come in and avert up. So
Tasmanian, that's exactly what we say.
I
think that's a common theme then among Web3, especially founders.
And I think if you know, for us, you know, I don't like talking, you know, I'm not very good at like bigging up what we've done. I'm just not that type of person. But like to go into crypto in 2018 when no one else was even thinking about it, and then not only that, but then to really kind of double down on that and go,
that is
not all in, because we still because we still have the non-crypto side of the business, but to really kind of hone in on that as one of the key areas. Like you have to take a gamble. Like, you didn't know how that was going to go. You know, 2018 was still very up and down. It could have gone either way. So you have to have a bit of a mindset of, I'm willing to take risks. I'm a bit of a, you know, kind of risk taker, and you know, like the buzz of that. Because if you don't, you just say, well, we're not going to go into crypto because it's a bit too risky.
Growth is uncomfortable.
And that's the thing, right? You have to be a bit crazy.
Yeah, I agree. And I always say this as well, that the biggest asset of a company is, it's like the human resources that are the most valuable resources. But one thing I would love to know, and I ask this of like every Web3 founder that I meet, because I think it was a challenge for myself as someone that got into crypto recently, but how do you make sure that your staff is trained and up to date on all, especially, I mean, in tax and accounting, like all the policies and everything? What's the key?
I mean, the key, like genuinely on day one, because it's funny now thinking back, because it feels like it was yesterday, but then when I think about it, I'm like, wow, that was a long time ago, right? So, you know, back on day, I had to learn everything, right? So on day one of us getting into crypto, I had to really go, do you know what? I need to know everything that I can know about this. So I was very close to HMRC in the UK and the policies they were bringing out, you know, the accounting bodies, ACCA, etc., and the policies that they were bringing out. I was reading all of those myself as well, but also investing in crypto, a bit of like research and development, right? Where I was like, and never too enough to retire, unfortunately. So only have a little bit. So I was the accountant in the room that I'll do a little bit of money over here, but not. So I was going in these protocols, I was staking, I was, you know, providing liquidity and liquidity pools, and, you know, exchanging on exchange, you know, all of these things, and then extracting all that data as if I was a client of myself, and then trying to work out, well, why does that look like that? I know the accounting kind of methodology, but I don't understand why that looks like that. And if it does look like that, how do I make it look like that, right? So I think the key was I learned everything kind of from the ground up myself. And then I just started to pass that on to certain members of the team. So you give them the opportunities to do that themselves. We haven't done it for a while. We should do it again. This has kind of made me think about it, is we did give the team maybe a couple of years ago now, like $100, $150 each to kind of go and trade and play. And we should maybe do that again. So team, if you're listening,
you're welcome.
Yeah, you can thank Nikki if you become millionaires, but if you do, don't retire. So yeah, I think that was one of the keys. And then you've just got to stay close to policy. You've got to stay close to, we know the area we're in. We know accounting, we know tax, all those things. So what we need to do is just start to stay close to policy to understand how that meets, the crypto kind of world. And then obviously ongoing, there is the case of keeping them, getting them on webinars, getting them to, to watch, YouTube. We used to, I don't know if you know the guys at Coin Bureau, but when they first, they're based here, I think as well. When they first, when we first employed people, we'd get them to watch some of the top 5 basic videos that they put out about crypto, just to really give them that kind of, it's like their first day, they'd just be sitting on YouTube all day watching crypto videos. That's not very often in an accounting firm, that's the first day, right?
Yeah.
So it's all of those things as to really getting them immersed in it. And we're very lucky. We work with some amazing projects, some really kind of top projects. So we also then get exposed, to a lot of really interesting, innovative, and some of the clients that we work with you, some really innovative, different kind of things that mean the team can really learn and kind of go from there. But again, our hiring policy now is very much we hire the right person for the job, not the right CV, if that makes sense. So, our team now, we've got obviously UK, Dubai, we've got an office being quite fast developed in South Africa. It's about 8 of us now in South Africa, or 8 of them, should I say? I'm not there. We've got a guy in Cambodia. We've got a guy in Barcelona. So it's, it's very much where's the best talent? Well, it happens that this best talent was in Cambodia. He was excellent at crypto. We've then had to help him do a few bits and pieces on the tax side, but ultimately he's excellent at crypto. He's in Cambodia. Who cares? He doesn't need to be in an office in the UK,
That's really cool. South Africa, is there a crypto market in South
Africa? There is, because there's 2 things, right? There's currency controls.
Oh.
And there's a volatile currency in terms of the rand that that they have. It is quite volatile. So a lot of people there like crypto. There's a big exchange called Luno, which are a really big exchange based in Cape Town.
Cool.
So there's a lot of crypto there. And they also came out quite recently. I'm sure the government will challenge it, but the central bank basically ruled that, or the High Court, whatever, ruled that crypto was outside of their currency controls. Oh. So if I have USDT and I'm in South Africa and I send it to you, there's no currency control on that. So that's obviously boosted crypto. I'm sure the government will try and challenge that, because you don't want things like that outside your control. But yeah, at the moment it's quite a booming area. And they're excellently trained accountants, some of the best accountants I've ever met.
South Africa.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, so just before we end the podcast, I want to ask you one final question. What are you bullish on right now? Just in general.
I think I'm definitely bullish on kind of AI and crypto coming together. Mm-hmm. I think that, as much as it's 2 buzzwords, I think if 2 things could be so perfect for each other, I genuinely think it's AI and crypto. AI with the ability to do things automatically, and then crypto to be able to execute that, or blockchain to be able to execute that. I think they genuinely are a match made in heaven. I think that RWAs are obviously going to be a big thing, because if we can tokenize things, Dubai did a lot with tokenization of property. I don't know what it's like. I haven't bought a property here, but in the UK, it's so slow because everything is so much paperwork, and, lawyers have got to do so much, and, it takes them weeks to get documents because of, if we can tokenize all of that, the whole process is so much better. So I think, tokenization will make things quicker, more efficient, cheaper, all those things. So I think tokenization and then AI and crypto combined are the 2 probably buzzwords, but I think they're buzzwords for a reason.
Completely agree. Okay, so now we're just going to do a rapid fire round before we end. What's the most underrated habit?
In general, or? That's a good, it's supposed to be rapid fire. It's a really good question. I tell you what is really underrated in my eyes is keeping a to-do list. And I know that sounds ridiculous.
On paper.
Yeah, but actually having it there to be able to tick off, and the satisfaction you get ticking off that to-do list and like actually just jotting stuff down. So like, I know it sounds really lame, we're talking about Web3 and all this innovation, but I think a to-do list like that is the one thing that saves me sometimes.
100% agreed. What's one book that changed things for you?
So I really like the Bitcoin Standard. Like, I think that book was, have you read that one?
No.
No, I think that book is one of those that really gives you that insight into what crypto does. So
interesting. Bitcoin Standard.
Yeah.
Okay. Telegram or Slack?
Telegram, 100%. a million %.
Okay. And if you weren't doing this, what would you be doing?
So asking me that now is obviously very different, right? Because I've been in crypto now. So if I wasn't doing this now, I would be doing something in crypto, 100%. You're building something, creating something.
Yeah. Okay. And then finally, if, just finish the sentence. In 10 years, Nephos Group will be?
Nephos Group will be the biggest player in professional services in crypto.
Amazing. We love that. Thank you so much.
Thank you
for coming today. It was so nice. Lovely talking to you as always.
Yeah, you too.
And as usual, big thank you to Web3 TV for giving us this beautiful studio.